Hey everybody, Ben Balsalek here with Norm Morale. We're gonna get started in just a few minutes. We're gonna let everybody get settled. Need to grab a little bit more water, a cup of coffee, some popcorn. Go right ahead. And we're on it's Mardi Gras, so start the Mardi Gras Mambo.
These are great vibes for Thursday then. Well done.
These are my vibes all week long. Got some praise to go to tonight. Those of you who are just now joining us, feel free to use the Q&A feature. Tell us where you're calling in from. I'm down here in the Big Easy, New Orleans. Lauren, you're in Denver, right?
I am. I'm just south of Denver.
Right. Brian's calling in from Minnesota. Boston. What's up, Alex? Scott and Eugene. Nona calling from St. George. Another Denver. Some others in Minnesota. Awesome. Minnesota heavy today.
Love it.
Keith and Jerry, what's up? Got some folks from Lexington, Springfield, Reno. Oh my gosh. So just so everybody knows, you are all invited to Mardi Gras. Come on down. I have one spare room.
It'll be raffled off as part of our webinar today then.
Right? We're going to get started in just a moment, you guys. We're going to let everybody get settled. I see some others coming in from Maine. While we're waiting, feel free to go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you're following AdCellerant on all those social media channels. We're constantly sharing some amazing stuff there for you guys. And you'll always find out what we're up to as well. Join some other webinars. I think we have two people here. Benjamin out of Nassau, Bahamas. You might have just beat everybody. I bet it's absolutely gorgeous down there. But I do see Kathy calling in from Wine Country, California. I may prefer to be there, but you know, I'll hang out here in New Orleans for the time being. But we are excited to have all of you here. Thank you so much for joining me and Lauren. We are going to talk a little bit about AdCellerant Select. And let me tell you exactly what that means. I can actually pull up a deck. It might be helpful, right? But to get started, I'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Ben Balsog. I'm our Vice President of Business Development. I am a talker, and they pulled me out of the operations team because my fingers are swelling, and I, throw an extra zero on things frequently. But I've been with the company almost 9 years now. Excited to see a lot of you here today. I'm sure I might be a familiar face with some of these webinars that you're joining, but I'm thrilled to have Lauren Morell, our Senior Vice President of AdCellerant Select, actually join us today. Sorry, Lo, I actually forgot to throw the S on that front one there. It's my bad.
No.
But Lauren, if you don't mind, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I am Lauren Morell, as Ben mentioned. I'm the SVP of AdCellerant Select. My background is primarily in performance marketing. So I spent some time in the publisher world on the agency side, and have been with AdCellerant for about 6 years. So we have a lot of really great content to walk you all through today. I'm excited to dive in.
Awesome. On our agenda today, as always, we're going to do a quick little review of who is AdCellerant. We're going to talk about how you can identify those select level clients. And for those of you who don't know, select level clients are those whales. So as we're continuing through here, start sharpening those harpoons. We're going to need that ready to go by the end of this call. We're going to talk about how you can prepare for success with these opportunities ahead, some of your strategic client engagement, how Lauren and her team are able to support you, and also how to win that sale, retain the sale, and continue to drive growth in other wonderful ways. As a quick reminder, AdCellerant is a technology and digital advertising services company, and our goal is to make the complexity of digital simple. We do that through an incredible team of award-winning professionals and customer service individuals. We provide expert education, best-in-class technology and software, and plenty of good jokes. We are based in Denver, Colorado. Everything you get from AdCellerant is done by an AdCellerant employee that is US based. We do have our proprietary software that if any of you have not seen that, please make sure you reach out to me or Lauren, and we'll help make sure you get a full demonstration of that. We've been growing quickly, but that's because our partners are growing quickly with us. We're really proud of the accomplishments we've made over the last several years. Have about 220 people on the team. I need to update that number on my deck. And then actually work with about 500 different local media partners and ad agencies around the world, primarily here in the United States, but I am always looking to add some stamps to my passport. So always excited about that. To really tie AdCellerant into a nutshell, we are a full stack digital agency solution in a white label format. So a lot of our partners will actually be direct with their advertisers, and they use us in the background to support their digital sales, the actual digital sales, the digital fulfillment, reporting, and beyond. So if you guys are looking for a partner, maybe not a vendor, but a partner to help out with any of those things, we would love to do that with you. So let's get into the good stuff. Let's talk about AdCellerant Select. So what AdCellerant Select is, you guys, is essentially what I like to call our Golden Gloves team. AdCellerant really provides a white glove service throughout all of our necessary services. However, the Select team provides a higher level and more boutique experience with opportunities that will typically come in a much larger format when in larger investments. So a lot of you guys have specific opportunities arise where you might have a customer that's spending $25, $50, $100, $150,000 a month with you, or just the opportunity to do that. This is when you bring in your AdCellerant Select team. This is when you want to bring them in on your client needs analysis and discovery call. You want them to help with the pitch, to put together the strategy. You want to help with retention, renewing, reporting, and have a dedicated team of subject matter experts and expert traders within all of the platforms to get you the best bang for your buck and for your customers to drive significant revenue. So we've got some amazing work with several companies. You can see some of them here already. But this is a very dedicated and specialized team in performance marketing campaigns. And I may have just broken it down nice and simply for you guys. I'm going to let Lauren Morell talk about it a little bit more in depth here soon. So Lauren, let's get this started. How do we even get started to identify these types of opportunities? I know a lot of us, have worked direct with advertisers before. How do we even find out what's that opportunity look like?
Yeah, great question, Ben. And really, some of this I'm willing to bet all of you are kind of doing in your day-to-day as is. And some of it is just kind of keeping your ear to the ground or keeping your eyes open for some of these opportunities. There's some additional places to look too. So first and foremost, for me, again, as I mentioned, I come from a publisher background. So for many and all of you, competitive media. Are you seeing folks on billboards? Are you seeing them in newspapers? Are you seeing them on TV? Just sort of keeping a pulse on where you're seeing these messages repetitively in market. That's typically where I start. I also kind of keep an eye out too for potential businesses that look similar, look like my current client base. Really, what are those commonalities and how can we use our experience to our advantage to help open those doors? Friction is an interesting one. I think friction has a negative connotation, but it's really solving problems for these potential advertisers. So is there an industry that's experienced a lot of growth or rapid change? Are they needing to reach new customers? Are they experiencing a lot of disruption? And this is really an area where our team can help arm you with information, but also bring additional value to these potential advertisers, again, to help open those doors. The last one that I'll note here is, are they public? This is actually one of my favorite ways to find whale advertisers because in many instances, if you think about government clients or higher education, travel or tourism, if they're getting funding from state governments or tax dollars in any instances, those opportunities have to be made public. So there's free platforms out there that you can subscribe to where you have access to these public requests for proposals or requests for information. I will mention that our team has immense experience submitting for these larger RFP opportunities. So this is actually one of my favorite ways to kind of keep a pulse on where to identify these whale opportunities. Again, I'm willing to bet everybody on this call is doing some of these to some extent. I think really where we find more of these opportunities coming to the table is when you kind of keep your ears open across all of them.
Exactly. And you know what? One of my favorite things that I just heard you say, Lauren, and I want to make sure I reiterate it to the team and actually just kind of provide some edification to it. you didn't just talk about any type of advertising product or any type of performance. What you're doing here is you're focused on, I like the word friction. Where are they experiencing friction today? Are they trying to create, new products that they're selling? Are they providing any services? Are they not growing their business the way they want to? You're focused on pain points there. Obviously, anybody and everybody out there is buying digital advertising these days. Some people have, deeper pockets and larger investments available to do that. Is when you bring in that team to help identify those as well. So I want to reiterate this part. We're not just here to help you, um, you know, execute and report on these campaigns. We want to jump into the pre-sale side. And if you guys need help understanding, like, who can we identify? Bring your client list to us. Anybody that's ever run with you ever, let's create a hit list together. Let's talk about how we can potentially open up those opportunities again, or just open them up in period or in general. So different verticals that we're seeing a lot of success in today that are going to continue to grow. And this is not an exclusive or exhaustive list here. This is definitely something that we see is like popping off right at the moment, right? Think about legal, automotive, higher education, retail, new and emerging industries. There's some pretty interesting ones there, you guys, especially when it comes to all the technology stuff, home services. And I also want to add in here, e-commerce is not off the table. We've got an incredibly talented e-commerce team that they can lean into, and they're pretty freaking dangerous when it comes down to it. So think about these verticals in general as a good starting point, but then think about all the different verticals that actually touch them as well. Professional services, manufacturing, co-op dollars, sister companies. Think of like companies that have portfolios of businesses. How can you get in with one and then land and expand with the rest of them? So different things to think about there. And as I head into this next section here as well, I want to remind everybody we do have the Q&A feature available. If you want to ask any questions on the fly, we'll do our best to answer them, either type them out or we can answer them on the spot for you. So let's think about what this opportunity actually looks like. This is actually a recent eMarketer report that was just pulled in August. But according to eMarketer, industries like retail, CPG, and financial services are going to be investing heavily into digital services in 2025. So the year's already here. We are upon these opportunities. It's time to start bringing them in. So think about what those opportunities are and look at that number, 93 billion with a B, like Ben, 52 billion. We need to continue to think about how we can get in front of these folks and just find the opportunity to sit down with them and let a team of people who are able to do it appropriately. A quick question, what is CPGs? Consumer packaged goods. So people who are selling direct products to consumers. Think toothpaste or, even plywood, things like that. Great.
Yeah, Ben. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I think you made a really good point too in the last slide about e-commerce. Consumer packaged goods and direct to consumer e-commerce go hand in hand in a lot of ways. To Ben's earlier point too, those verticals can experience a lot of complexities, especially if they're selling direct to consumer online or in retail. So this eMarketer report is really interesting. It's looking at verticals from a really high level, but when we continue to break that down, if we look at regional opportunity, or Ben, to your point about different segments of one individual business, this is really where this team is designed to help you, because those strategies should be nuanced and the pain that they're experiencing on the advertiser side is a little bit different. So being able to solve those pain points directly for each piece that's important for their business is important to know.
Absolutely. There is actually an awesome question here on that last slide. Michael asks, how can we make sure that we have a better seat at the table in other markets or markets that are bigger than where we're at today? I want to remind everybody, you are not constrained to where your owned and operated reach is. Digital has no geographical limit. So you can order a campaign where you're sitting right there in Mobile, Alabama, or Birmingham, wherever you might be today, and run campaigns out in California. I have a customer down in the South. They live in a small city. They've got it's actually a publisher. They actually have their biggest campaign is running up in New Jersey and into like the New York, the tri-state area, because they went to college with the person that owns the business. So think about those opportunities that you have as well, right? We have friends that have turned into business owners and successful businessmen and women, things like that. The opportunities are ripe, and digital has no geographical boundaries. So if there's somebody that and I also think about it this way: if you do it great where you're at today, you can land and expand that way. We've worked with plenty of businesses where we're running it in a particular set of markets, and we do so well for them. They're like, all right, we're going to start handing off other markets to you. We're going to start bringing this stuff over to you, where they can then create more buying power with you in particular and AdCellerant to ensure that they're getting the most bang for their buck, and standardizing it across all their markets, where you get micro performance per market, but then can also bring it together at a macro level as well. I hope I explained that okay.
Ben, I'll just add to that really quickly is we're going to talk a lot about data and the relevancy of data for these types of accounts. We have access to national data that's at your disposal. So when you think about opening these doors outside of your individual market or even within your region, having resources that are available to you that give you greater scale to open these doors is definitely something we can help with.
Absolutely. So let's think about how we can prepare for success. Oh my gosh, the first thing we should always do on every conversation we're about to have, do your research and then do some more research. And just a little salesman's trick here that I like to do: when you get in there, use some of that research and ask open-ended questions. Hey, you guys just experienced a ton of growth in the last 2 years. What would you attribute that to? I saw that there was a hiccup in the news here that was talking about this. What's that from? How do you do that? Very open-ended questions. But you can get this research actually really easily. There's this wonderful thing. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. It's called Google. It has tons of information, and you can really find just about anything at the tip of your fingers there. So make sure you're looking at their websites and put yourself into like the user mentality there too. Provide candid feedback. Hey, I went to your website. I was a little confused. Like, tell me what I should be feeling there when I get it, right? That might be saved for another call down the line, but review competitors' websites as well. Read about them in the news. That's a good one to use as well. Set up Google alerts to track what they're doing in the market. Visit and follow their social media channels. Sign up for their email list. You want to understand your client as best as possible. And if they're already doing a lot of this marketing, you might as well try and use that to your leverage, right? Read the quarterly earnings reports. A lot of times, especially if they are public companies, you can get some good information, and you can ask some pretty hard questions to them where they'll probably be pretty open about, oh, yeah, you're right. The stockholders were not very happy about that one. So this is what we have to do to change it. But we also need to map out the account. And I'm going to tee up Lomo here. When I think about mapping it out, I think of like, the old TV shows and movies with detectives, and they put up, here's the crime, here's what happened, here's the victims, whatever. And they put all these strings attaching everything. Like, here's all the things that feed into it. Tell me what mapping out the account means to you, Lauren.
You're not inherently wrong, Ben. I think really this is honestly my favorite way to approach accounts of these size is getting on paper the size and scope of the account itself. How many employees do they have? What's the size of the organization? What's their primary business? What are they selling into who? But it's also really helpful to identify who and within what departments and with what message should we be reaching out to them with. So Ben, like I said, red string, you're not inherently wrong. But once you get all of those names, contact information, and motivators on paper, it makes it really easy for you to be systematic about who you're reaching out to and when with what message. We're definitely going to talk a little bit about the folks involved in these types of accounts and what they care about and what motivates them to have these conversations. But for me, having a template where I can identify specifically who I'm reaching out to, when, and what I'm saying to them just makes it really easy to rinse and repeat as you're going after these accounts.
And to put that plan together and make sure you track it, right? Make sure you're following through with that. And it's important here as well, like you can't just have one point of contact and only be working through those. That could make your opportunity very volatile, especially if you've won that opportunity. You don't want one point of contact. Make it deeper. Get in with the next person up, the next person to the side, and even the next person below them. See if you can continue to get candid feedback from all of them, and don't just assume because you got one good relationship, you got it locked in the bag forever. I've literally been in a situation in the past where we were trying to get in with other folks, but there's this one person and they ended up retiring, and we were assuming that things would continue. New point of contact comes in, shuts it off. And it's like, oh shoot, did not see that coming. We were told otherwise, but things can happen. So the deeper you can get within the organization could be really, really beneficial there.
It also gives you the ability, Ben, sorry, just one other thing to note on that front is it also gives you the ability to see who you have in common. Like, do you have mutual connections? Do you have overlap in experience? And using those types of resources to open doors or help you open doors. The other thing that I'll mention is as we go through this, there really is no singular silver bullet to grow your presence with whale accounts. It is the combination of all of these little different pieces, and the more rigorously we adopt and do them, really will increase your footprint with these types of accounts.
Absolutely. So that's part of like what staying in the know is all about, right? It's understanding what's going on, mapping out everything you know about the account, understanding what's happening in their industry as well, and making sure that you're prepared to address those things because you can say, hey, this is a pain point for the industry. I'm sure it's a pain point for these guys too. Tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking here with stay in the know. Well,
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I mentioned we're going to talk a lot about data. This is a really great example. So, this is a quick snapshot of competitive data that we have access to. And I know we touched on legal being a huge vertical for whale hunting, if you will. So, Morgan and Morgan is a national firm. They're one of the biggest advertisers nationally in the legal space. But we also know that if you kind of go down one step, if you think about regional firms or folks that are competing with Morgan and Morgan in sort of specific areas of the country, these are great targets or great opportunities for these whale opportunities. But it's helpful to kind of go in knowing what's happening, Ben, to your point, in the vertical, in the landscape. This is a great opportunity where we see with Morgan and Morgan, 78% of their digital investment about is going to the OTT space. So how can we use this information to open doors with other advertisers to help them outsmart and not outspend? I think really leveraging this data to your advantage to help them see where they can kind of carve out a niche or a competitive advantage in light of a vertical where we see high investment of dollars, really just staying on the pulse of what's happening at a macro level, and then using that information to your advantage to help kind of open those doors with regional decision makers or other national decision makers to, again, help them outsmart and not outspend.
I think that's always important to think about here, you guys. We're about to get real creepy here in just a few minutes and talk about some of the data that we have access to, that you have access to as well through AdCellerant. But these are things that you can use to, and when Lauren talks about outsmarting it instead of outspending, I also like to put it in a different way and say, let's exploit them. Let's make sure that we find out where they're spending, where they're not spending, see if we can get in there, land and expand a little bit more, and just be more strategic with how we're doing it instead of saying, we're going to go up, nose to nose with these guys in the same market. And I know they're spending 50% more than me, but we got to do it anyways just to see if we get in. You don't need to do that. We can make sure that we're being much more precise with the actual deployment of your campaigns to get more juice out of the squeeze there. So just a sales way to say it, I guess. Lauren's is way better.
That was good. That was perfect, Ben.
So let's think about the engagement that we have with the client, right? We kind of touched on these already, getting deeper into these organizations. One, we have to identify who different individuals are, who are the decision makers. I mean, literally, who are they? Are they owning the business? Are they department leads, team leads? Do they lead agencies? What do they do on the side? What do they do for fun? Do they have children? Like, let's learn about these people. Let's get personal with them. You got to build a relationship with people deeper than what it is on our business surface. So it helps you understand how to engage with them more as well. Because we need to understand, are we making them money, saving them money, creating efficiencies, helping them move faster, building a foundation for them so they can build up more. What are those priorities? And think about how we can address those. So when you guys have those conversations, get deep, keep going. If you've asked 20 questions, you need to ask 20 more, and then continue to record and map those out. Other team members that are involved in these things, who are they? How do we need to engage with them? What's their involvement going to be if we're to move forward with things? What's their involvement going to be just during the pre-sales process? Think about how you need to interact with each of these, and then how you can turn some of these people into influencers as well, right? Whether a decision maker is an influencer for like the ultimate decision maker going up to the CEO or board or something like that. Or if you have people on the ground level that's like, hey, I've worked with that song before, and I know you guys can do some great stuff, or I've worked with this media partner before. I know you guys have done some great stuff. I think we can really make sure this works out awesome. Understand what those different hierarchies are, who's involved, what their importance is inside of this process, but then stay connected with all of them. Obviously, to different levels of extent, but the more people you know, the deeper you get in there, the better it's going to be.
The other thing to note there, Ben, too, is I think understanding what's important to people in each sort of where they're fitting in the organization can really help you tailor your messaging. I think about initial outreach strategies when you're just trying to get that first meeting on the books, knowing what's important to each person at each stage of this organization or level of this organization can really help you tailor your messaging to what's important to them. So when we think about decision makers, Ben, to your point, they're interested in making money for their organization, saving money for their organization, or ultimately generating efficiency. So if we can craft a message that speaks very directly to that person in one of these three buckets, it will increase our chances of getting a seat at the table, for instance.
And then when we're talking to directors of departments, their goal is to essentially block and tackle for their reps or executives or even operations members, right? So how do we help them do more with less? How do we
Yep.
help them grow their revenue down at the ground level? How do we make sure that they're using product mixes that are going to support their overall growth as well? So again, talking to them on their level is going to be really important. So identify what those important things are going to be.
This is why I love an account map, is because you can literally put it on a piece of paper and know exactly who fits where in an organization. Again, back to the red string. It's a really good way to do it.
We're a digital company, Lomo. We got to stop using paper. Come on.
We need to find a digital red string to connect all of those points.
You know what?
Um,
Out there.
what was that?
I bet they got that out there.
You're right. I bet you're right. So I also want to chat a little bit around the questions to ask. I've spent 15 years in business development. Finding, closing big whale accounts is my personal favorite thing to do. And I think what I've found over these years is that a lot of this work can be done upfront in discovery. Someone gave me a tip at one point in the recent past to ask how and what focused questions. It's open-ended to Ben's point. It really lets them dive in on the answers. But it's interesting if you think about how who and why questions can sometimes put somebody on the defensive, for lack of a better way to say it. So I try to focus on how and what questions. We have a couple examples here over the next couple of slides, but truly when we think about that first conversation, when you're opening the door to a whale opportunity, trying to get to the heart of what is important to them in their business and what they're trying to accomplish will allow you to tie a thread through all of these next phases. So the data is important. Being as educated going into this conversation as you can is important, but it's also, from our perspective, this discovery customer needs analysis conversation is a really important first step also. Couple more questions here. Again, if you're thinking about where you're trying to ultimately bring this conversation, who are their customers and how are they trying to reach them? How is their business different and how do they win? How have things been going for them? I think really this last question allows you to get to kind of the heart of their friction or their pain points. And if things have been going really well, how can you help those go even better? If there are challenges in their business, how can we help solve those for them? This next piece will kind of go into kind of where to, oh, sorry, Ben, did I go too fast?
I'll say I'll move to you too.
No, you're doing good. You can go to the next one. It's hard when you're not the one driving the slides. I'm sorry. But lastly here, I think I always think about ending these conversations with how can we help? And again, if it kind of goes back to where they're experiencing pain, what are the most valuable next steps for them? What are they looking for in a partner? What are the current gaps that we can help them fill? To Ben's point, if you've asked 20 questions, find a way to ask 20 more. A lot of the work that comes after this initial meeting, when we think about these whale accounts, closing these big six-figure opportunities, the information that you gather throughout this stage, everything that we recommend, everything that we should propose should tie back to the questions that you asked in this initial meeting. So again, we had some good examples on these slides. How and what questions, just really digging into those nitty-gritty pieces of their business to inform where we go next.
This next part should be easy, right? Winning the sale.
It's my favorite part.
This is, if you guys want to win a sale, you just call Lauren. She'll come and do it for you. That's what I do.
I mean, Ben, truly, like, I think this is a team sport and using your resources. It's actually the last thing on this slide. Being able to tap into additional data sources or just have an additional perspective in a conversation to kind of help open up insight from the client side. You heard us just talk all about this, but continuing to ask questions throughout the process and adding value is so critical for these types of accounts. The other thing that I'll say here is don't sell them. I think what I've experienced, and I'm sure a number of folks on this call have, is that the best salespeople aren't salespeople at all. They're educating those potential clients, they're offering them additional resources, they're adding value, they're solving their business problems and addressing their pain. And I think for me, when I think about these types of deals, foundationally, that's where it kind of makes or breaks in this process is educating them and helping them understand how we can help them solve their problems.
I could not agree with you more. I'm not going to say anything. I just agree. Well, let's
So
talk about the process.
no, no, no. And I want to kind of give an example of how AdCellerant Select thinks about it and how we can support your process as you're looking to bring on these larger clients. I want to look at this from a macro level. This process is important, but there's two that we want to highlight in particular today with steps 1 and 2 with the digital audit and analysis and competitive analysis. So when we think about adding value and sort of bringing insights and education to the table when you're having these conversations, these two can be really beneficial. But we also want to think about digital strategies, especially as we get into these larger, more complex, more sophisticated budgets, kind of in this way, is we want to understand what's happening with their current programs. We also want to understand what's happening around them, both in their market and their competitive set. We also want to know what their consumer is thinking and also where they're engaging with media. And we also want to marry that with what markets are those folks in and how can we most effectively reach them, and then bringing all of these data points together in a strategic media strategy that specifically addresses the needs of that business. And so once that sort of roadmap is in place, we're launching campaigns that are designed to address their business needs and also the complexity and, again, sophistication as their budgets are growing. We'll talk a little bit about retention and growth, but the other half of that is carrying this research-led and data-driven approach through to campaign execution and reporting and data. That's just as important as the upfront sale.
Real quick, I'm going to ask, share of hands here. How many people have some people on the team that may not be super familiar, let alone comfortable with this process? Oh, there's 80 people here. Okay, I just saw 102 hands go up. A couple of them were going 2 hands up there. Perfect. This is a lot easier than you think when you can lean into a partner like AdCellerant Select. If you see an opportunity, it just because we have these things, we say, hey, let us know when it's there. Like, bring us in. We're able to help handhold and provide more support up front on some of those things as well. If you guys are just like, hey, we're not comfortable with doing this stuff, like, let's bring you in right away. Like, think about how much value you can get with just even a CNA assistance, right? Those are types of things that we may be able to help with as well, that your team can get a lot of value out of. And then the more we do it, we rinse and repeat. So, little monkey see, monkey do it. We want to help make sure that we're also teaching everybody to fish instead of just giving a fish every single time, because this is what's going to make us better over time. And it's what's going to help grow your business over time too. So, I love this process. And then sometimes this process is like, whoa, way over our head. And then we're going to dive into each of these different things here in a second. But I want you guys to understand, like, if you need help, ask for it.
Totally. I think that's a great point, Ben. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about those kind of first two pieces here, especially because they can be incredibly valuable in the active sales process. One of my favorite things to look at is a digital audit. I think this provides a lot of value for the end advertiser in a couple of different ways. Is we can talk a lot about the tools and our approach and the team, but if we have the ability to conduct an audit, it really brings this to life for an advertiser. So it gives us a lens into what their campaigns are currently doing, what's working, where there's opportunity. It also gives them the ability to see how our teams think about digital strategy, campaign execution, and ultimately measurement. So I'll definitely note that some advertisers, you'll get kind of varying degrees of their willingness to share their data with you. But a lot of times, especially if there's pain in this process, if their performance isn't where they want it to be, or they're seeing a lot of fluctuation year over year, for instance, being able to dive in from an audit perspective and come back to them and say, here's what we saw specifically with your campaigns, and here's how we would go about changing the outlook of these strategies, and here's what it means for your business, is incredibly powerful. This is one of my favorite steps.
Our team does an amazing job, and they're very tactful in these types of conversations as well, especially when you're approaching a group and you're like, hey, we're going to take over the execution for you. And you might have the person right there that's actually running the campaigns for them at that moment. Like, you need to make sure that you carry that conversation with some couth so that you don't necessarily throw them under the bus and tell them that, hey, you're doing a terrible job over here. But hey, you know what? You've done decent so far. There's definitely some room for opportunity, and that's where we can come in to help you guys be more smarter and instead of working harder on it. So definitely a couple things to think about there. Let's talk about that next step. What's that competitive analysis look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about understanding what's happening around the advertiser in their market with their competitive set. We primarily use a blend of three different tools, Kantar, Pathmatics, and Adthena, that really give us a 360-degree view, again, of what's happening in that competitive landscape. That includes digital media, that includes offline media. Athena is a really robust tool to give us some insight into what's happening in the paid search space. And as I mentioned, we don't want to use this information to go to the advertiser and frame it as like, okay, your biggest competitor is spending $5 million. You also need to spend $5 million. It's a really great way to educate them around where they can outsmart and not outspend. So we have a couple examples on what this data looks like and kind of how it's presented. It allows them to see sort of where they're at in terms of share of voice in comparison to their competitive set. I think what we found for clients like automotive and legal, for instance, is they're really interested in knowing sort of where they stack up against their competitors. So we look at this from an overall lens, and then we also look at this from a specific media lens. And when we kind of identify that full competitive set, where the highest thresholds of investment across different media types? Is it online? Is it offline? And how can we sort of identify those smaller pieces of the pie, again, carve out a competitive advantage, but also help them find more efficiency in comparison to sort of the market average as it relates to media mix? And then the last, oh, sorry, Ben, I talked right over you.
Jump on this real quick. Think about this, you guys. I know a lot of our partners are actually media organizations as well. This could be a good way to outline why they should be spending more with you on core product, on own and operate products, within print, within TV, within radio, within out of home, things like that. And we could help provide strategic recommendations to do that as well. So think about that. This isn't just digital. Like, yeah, we're really interested in it because we can help you out with the digital, but at the same time, we don't grow unless you guys grow. And so we're going to put our best foot forward. And if that helps you guys with some of your other products, by all means, that's what we want to help out with.
So the last piece of this is trending spend. So are there peaks and valleys in investment over the course of the last handful of years? This is really valuable for seasonal businesses. Think home services, automotive is another really great one, higher education or travel or tourism. Where are there saturation of dollars over the course of the year? And how can we sort of respond, or even in some instances, take advantage of those trends? Can we be in market a little bit sooner? Can we be in market a little bit longer? And so bringing all of these pieces together is just sort of one data point that can help inform these strategies. And if you think about it from the end advertiser perspective, when they're thinking about the best way to invest their dollars, having sort of this line of sight, again, allows them to be smarter, allows their dollars to work harder, and really just arms them with additional data and information.
So think about this, you guys. I'm just going to run back through these things on some of this competitive analysis. For the record, these are things we pull that we will help present to your prospect, to your client, to show what they're doing, what their competitors are doing, how they're doing it, where they're doing it, and how much of it they're doing. And I mean, I've been on plenty of these conversations where, Lauren or someone else on our team is actually making these kinds of pitches. Your clients, their eyes are going to be like sitting here like glued to the screen. They're going to be like moths, sucked into the light bulb in the middle of the mountain somewhere. We need to make sure that they understand this stuff, and so we can put it in a more digestible format for them too. We like to make sure that we provide everything, but help them understand why it's valuable that we have this information for them.
Definitely.
I was gonna say, this is the coolest part too. That's not just a pre-sale strategy, you guys. We need to continue to use these tools to maintain the accounts, to re-strategize, to change our plans if necessary. Their competitors are probably doing the same thing. We need to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success so that you turn this into a 2, 3, 4, 10-year account instead of just your 3, 6, 9-month account. Right? And so this is where you can continue to help be more dangerous and provide insulation from potential disruption where there's competitors coming at them galore saying, hey, we can do this better, we can do this here. When you can actually prove to them, like, it ain't going to work with the others if we see that this is what's happening in this spot.
Yeah, so some things to think about with retention. And I think one thing that's fantastic about these types of opportunities and winning these types of deals is they can continue to provide opportunity once you have a campaign live. To Ben's earlier point about other business units or departments or sister companies, what have you, being able to kind of retain these accounts is so critical. And so kind of, again, coming back to the value and discovery and really understanding what's important to their business, this is sort of how we think about approaching retention. It's about marrying the data, the value, the story with their business goals. We also have additional tools. I know we talked about some of those in the competitive analysis, but as we expand within these accounts, we have additional resources that can help arm those conversations. So audience segmentation tools with Claritas and MRI, where we can again see who their audience is from a very specific targeting standpoint, but also how they're consuming media. We can look at things like social sentiment with Meltwater and what's happening from an organic perspective with SEMrush or SEMrush. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly these days, but really continuing that delivery of value throughout that process doesn't just end once you close the sale.
This is really cool, and this is a huge value point that I provide to prospects that I have before I even get them to like the first conversation with the AdCellerant Select team. Is, hey, you guys, we actually put our money where our mouth is. We know you're considering investing heavily into us. We're going to be investing heavily into tools that are going to support all the things that you're doing as well. Some of these tools cost upwards of $100,000 a year just to have a single seat on them. We want to make sure that we have them available and at our disposal. And because we've actually created the way, at AdCellerant, we've scaled a way to be able to do this appropriately. Now you have them at your fingertips. And if you want to learn how to take advantage of some of these things, make sure you're reaching out to us to do so. So
Awesome.
we're continuing with the retention, right? We're storytelling, we're teaching, we're providing value throughout. What's reporting look like?
Yeah, so reporting is a really critical piece in this process. Like we talked about kind of with that timeline, if you will. The last piece is communicating back to these types of advertisers how their media is working. We have an incredibly robust dashboard that offers on-demand reporting that has tools built in, leveraging AI, like with reporting summaries. But on the Select side, we also have the ability to bring some additional customizable data visualization solutions to the table. So again, when we think about these types of advertisers, they care about things like revenue generation or return on ad spend or cost per acquisition or cost per quality lead. This team brings, again, some additional capabilities to tie in some of those business metrics alongside their campaign metrics, so that as we're having conversations on a monthly basis around how their media is working, it's tying all the way back to that discovery conversation that you had and what is most important and meaningful for them. It's addressing that pain in real time through data.
And I know we don't necessarily show it in here. We're not trying to give away all the secret sauce, but we can get as granular with attribution on return on ad spend, exactly what they're getting out of every single dollar that they spend, every single impression that's made, and just getting as deep as possible so that if they want to dive that deep, they can get down to the bottom.
Absolutely. All right. Last piece of this. Yep. Ben, you and I are so excited about this topic today. We are.
Let me tee up here, Lobo. So we got to continue to drive growth referrals. We are so excited for all 74 of you that are still on the call right now out of the 80 that started to continue to learn about this stuff. First off, if you need more information on AdCellerant Select, make sure you're reaching out to your dedicated account executives if you are an AdCellerant partner. If you're not an AdCellerant partner, make sure that you are hitting me up. We'll send some stuff over your way to make sure you have our information. But we need to continue to grow beyond that. Just because you got one whale doesn't mean we should stop there, right? Selfishly, this is the United States of America, and it's the American dream I'm going after. So let's keep growing. Deliver value always. Lomo, how are you helping our partners continue to deliver value to their customers with these accounts?
Yeah, we think about this kind of in three core buckets. The first is always stay curious, because their business is going to continue to evolve and their priorities today might look different than where their priorities will go in the next 6 months. So continuing to engage with them and be curious about their business will ensure that we can grow and adapt alongside them, which is actually the second bucket, is adapting with them as their business grows and changes, as should our strategies and approaches. We want to continue to bring these types of and any advertiser for that instance, new, fresh ideas to continue to meet their goals. So again, we kind of think about it in these three buckets, but it really does help as we work alongside these partners.
Absolutely. Let's see here. So how do we continue to expand relationships? As a business development professional, I lean into the current relationships I have a lot of times. I have no shame in going to someone I have a wonderful relationship with and working relationship with to say, hey, we've had an amazing job, amazing time working together. I'm sure you have industry colleagues that you know who might be a great fit working with AdCellerant Select. And from your perspective, it's the same thing with some of your advertisers, right? Ask them who else that they would recommend. Maybe they're across the United States in a totally different market. Find out what that is. But you can also get to know their business units. You do great with one of them, you can absolutely do great with another one. And once you provide a little proof in the pudding, they're more than willing to provide that recommendation for you. Also, make sure you're always building case studies. I know our team is definitely able to support some of those things for you, but do that with some of your own products as well, and take some of these anecdotal pieces and throw a testimonial together, right? Put it on the back of a business card. Hey, this person said that we crushed it for them. You should know that. But then also, education is key. Never stop learning, never stop teaching. It's the best way to sell. That is AdCellerant Select in a nutshell. But we sincerely appreciate the time that all of you have spent with us today. Thank you so much. We'll give you 13 and a half minutes back in your day. I'll give it another minute or two, see if there's any questions that you'd like to ask. Feel free to scan the QR code to reach out to AdCellerant, book a demo on our website. Otherwise, we do have my email and Lauren's email if you'd like to reach out to us directly. If you are, like I said, a current AdCellerant partner, please reach out to your dedicated account executive. They can help streamline a little conversation for you guys on what that looks like. And if you're not an AdCellerant partner, please feel free to reach out to myself or anybody else from my business development team who you might have a current relationship with. And we will look forward to speaking with you then. We will be sending out the deck with a recording and a follow-up to everybody that registered. So don't worry if you're here. We're going to make sure you get it probably by the end of today, if not early tomorrow. This was fun, Loma. We should do this more often.
Yeah, this is great. Happy Thursday, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thanks so much. Happy Mardi Gras. Enjoy the nice spring weather around. I don't see any questions. I just see some thank yous. Oh, someone said I look good. All right, thank you. No, I'm just joking. We'll appreciate the time, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.